Hello, I'm Eakin with the Bay Village, Ohio Historical Society. And today we're going to take you on a tour of some of the facilities we have here on Lake Road at the corner of Cahoon Road in Bay Village, Ohio. We're going to go through Rose Hill Museum, which is the original home of the Cahoon family, and the Osborn Learning Center, which was Reuben Osborn's house, and the log cabin replica of where the Cahoons would have first landed here. The Cahoons were from Virgin, Vermont. They walked here, arrived on the shores of Lake Erie October 10th, 1810. There were 8 of them in a horse-drawn or ox-drawn wagon. They quickly built a log cabin down by the creek, which now bears their name, and they spent 8 years there. They eventually built a grist mill to grind grain and a sawmill to make lumber. And with the proceeds from that and farming and fishing and cutting lumber and growing fruits, they were able to construct Rose Hill Museum, their homestead, in 1818. So we'll go inside there and take a look around, see what life was like. This was part of the Connecticut Western Reserve. All of the states to the west of the original 13 colonies owned the land to the west. Connecticut was the last state to give up their claim to all the lands to the west. And so this thin strip of land through here was part of the Connecticut Western Reserve. A lot of the land was awarded to Revolutionary War soldiers who had lost their homes during the war. Those were known as the Fire Lands, a bit to the west of here. But you can see, if you drive through Bay Village, look around, we're very New England here. Our architecture is New England, our morals, our religion, it's all very New Englandy here. We're far more New England than we are Midwesterners. So thank you for joining us, and hope you enjoy this. So now let's go inside Rose Hill Museum and see what life was like with the Cahoon family when they built this structure in 1818. Now we're inside Rose Hill Museum, main living quarters of the Cahoon family. Take a look around the room, as you will. This rocking chair has a bit of history. This is from the Aldrich family. This is a heirloom chair belonging to the Aldrich family, and they carved their family history on the bottom of the chair. There was no Ancestry.com, so they used a carving knife. The fireplace of the Cahoon family homestead. The typical mantle clock on top. They had to make their own clothes, so a lot of the tools you'll see for making fabric is in this room. Spinning wheels. The diploma above the spinning wheel is a ladies' educational diploma. Ladies were not given the same educational opportunities as men. And if they could weave a piece of cloth, do their ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, maybe their name and Bible verse, that was their diploma. The Cahoon desk. This is the schoolmaster's desk. This is a schoolmaster's desk from early 1860s. The first school in Bay Village was out on Lake Road, and this is the schoolmaster's desk. All grades attended the same old red brick school. The Cahoon cookie jar that came from Vermont when they walked here. On display now is our beadwork display. We have fine beadwork here and here. It's called The Beauty of Small Things. More beadwork on display here. And we'll move into the Victorian parlor. It's an antique clothes tree, probably dating from the 1860s. We have on display some of our fashions. We have a great collection of antique clothing in this museum, and we put some of it on display periodically. The black sofa coming into frame is made of horsehair fabric. If you see the artwork above that sofa, that is called a Victorian hair sculpture, created from hair from favorite animals, favorite people, favorite horses. That's a pump organ. And here's the stereo of the day. It's called a Regina music box. About 1910. Come on. Come on. You have 1,400 songs in your phone. We have one song right here. We have a perambulator on display. Preambulation is before walking, preambulate. More commonly known today as a baby buggy, baby carriage. Some of our prized Victorian objects that we have on display here at Rose Hill Museum in Bay Village. This is flow blue china and some of the fine silver and other china that the Cahoon families and other families had and was donated to the museum. This is some more of the fine china and silver that we have on display here at Rose Hill Museum, and a nice old sideboard topped with marble showing some of the pieces that might have been used in the day. We're in the library now at Rose Hill Museum in Bay Village. This building served for many years as the library for the city of Bay Village until a newer library was built in the 70s, and then this building became the museum for the Historical Society. A lot of these books are books from the Cahoon sisters who were school teachers in the Cleveland School District, and some very old books in here, a lot of school books used in their teachings. Many books here in the Rose Hill Museum. This one of the dictates of the Cahoon sisters with this was that this building shall forever be maintained as a museum or library. So we have tried to stay true to that in making it both a museum and a library. This is the genealogical library at Rose Hill Museum in Bay Village. Genealogy now is done with the internet and computers and Ancestry.com, but back then you had to research your family on paper and create books that describe your history, the history of your family, and to establish your provenance in the community. We're in the lower level of the Rose Hill Museum in Bay Village, Ohio now, showing some of the artifacts we have on display, and also some of the history of some of the local families, the Cahoons, Osborns, Sadlers, Aldriches, all founding families in this area. Henry Wishmeyer lived in Bay Village, grew up here. This was one of his hobbies, was a boat builder, and as a boat builder he would build miniature models of the boats that he saw going by on the lake in preparation for building full-scale versions of them. These are just some of his boats. Many of them are up at the Maritime Museum in Toledo, Ohio. Again, in the lower level of the Cahoon family homestead in Bay Village, now Rose Hill Museum. This would have been a work area, their workbench, some of the tools. There were no power tools. Everything was powered by either water from the running creek or manpower. This would have been the original kitchen in the lower level of the home. Some of the kitchen implements. No refrigerators, hand washing machines. Again, more tools for making clothing. You had to store your meat, fish, and vegetables for long periods of time. Smoke your meats. Put your fish in brine. Put your meat in brine, bring it out and soak it in fresh water to get the salty taste out. These are tough people. More of the lower level of Rose Hill. This is a room was created to look like a kitchen would have looked like. This was not the actual kitchen, but this is what a working kitchen would have looked like back in the 1850s, 60s, 70s. That's the Cahoon family loom coming into view. A simple 2-pedal loom. Again, they couldn't go to Target to buy their clothes. They had to make everything themselves. A dry shelf, they called it, for storing spices and herbs. And there was no refrigeration. You couldn't go to Heinen's, you couldn't go to Giant Eagle. You had to have everything stocked up for the winter when the snow flies, or you're going to go hungry. We're in the primitive bedroom upstairs in the Rose Hill Museum in Bay Village. This is what one of the bedrooms would have looked like from the 1820s. This is a rope bed. The bed is underlaid with hemp rope, and then they use a mattress full of corn husks. And these are bottles down below you keep by the fire at night, warm them up, bring them upstairs with you to huddle in bed. Same with this soapstone to keep you warm at night. And here's your bathroom. It was the youngest child's duty to empty these every morning. Periodically we have special displays here at the Rose Hill Museum. This was dedicated to the Bay Village League of Women Voters, celebrating their 75th anniversary. And we give them a small spot here to set up some of their memorabilia. This museum serves as a repository for all local community groups. The Men's Club, the Women's Club, Garden Club, all of their records are stored here at the Bay Village Historical Society. We're in the photo gallery now in the upstairs of the Rose Hill Museum in Bay Village, showing some of the photographs of the ancestors that formed this part of the country. Dover Township, part of the Connecticut Western Reserve, Cahoons, Aldriches, Tuttles, all the local families that came here for a better life. We have hundreds and hundreds of photos. More photos from upstairs in the portrait gallery. Many of these portraits were dismounted, digitally copied, and the originals are stored. These are reproductions of the originals so that the originals can rest and not be exposed to so much light. We recently won an award from the Ohio History Connection on the preservation project for all of these photographs. It was a huge effort, but it needed to be done. Some of these photographs were just sagging and in bad shape, and our president, Kathy Flement, took it upon herself to make it right. We're upstairs in the master bedroom of Rose Hill. When the addition was built in about 1909, they built the Victorian parlor downstairs and 2 bedrooms upstairs. You're in the larger of the 2, done as the master suite for the house, showing some of the antique fashions and furnishings. The second bedroom upstairs above the Victorian parlor at Rose Hill Museum is laid out as a children's bedroom with another rope bed and some old toys and items that show kids what life was like back in the 1850s, 60s, 70s. No Nintendo, no handheld games, no Game Boys. Wooden toys primarily, dolls, tea sets, trains. We're in the Reuben Osborn house now, part of the complex of the Bay Village Historical Society here in Bay Village, Ohio. This is the oldest frame house between Cleveland and Lorain, Ohio, built in 1814. This house houses a lot of papers, yearbooks, old Bibles, wills, deeds, from the Cahoon and other families. A large portion of our display is dedicated to the Sam Shepard murder trial. We still get people visit all the time interested in the case from 1954 where Dr. Shepard allegedly murdered his wife Marilyn. The case is still unsolved. And then we have displays on what are called the pre-built houses in Bay Village. They came as kits, honor-built kits, and we have a display of those. And then over here is the genealogy of some of the founding families in Bay Village, Osborns, Cahoons, and a display on the Lakeshore Electric and Urban, which ran through Bay Village and was integral in the establishment of Bay Village. And people are very interested in that. We have virtually all of the Bay High yearbooks here on display at the museum, the Osborn Learning Center at Bay Village. Most of them are scanned and on our website, bayhistorical.com. Elliot Ness was a resident of Bay Village for a while, and some of this is on his life and times. And we also have more Shepard memorabilia. And now you're in the living room of the Reuben Osborn house, built in 1814, showing some of the memorabilia that we've acquired. Reuben Osborn's dresser, a pump organ from the first church, an old Edison Victrola. Come visit the Bay Village Historical Society, Sundays 2 to 4:30, April through December, on the corner of Lake Road and Cahoon Road in Bay Village, Ohio. When the Cahoons arrived here October 10th, 1810, after purchasing 115 acres of lakefront land, they had to build a log cabin rather quickly. Winter was setting in, it was already mid-October. So they built a log cabin fairly quickly on the east side of the creek, which now bears their name. That cabin is no longer there. In 1976, under the direction of John Brandt, a local scoutmaster, he gathered a group of volunteers to recreate the Cahoon cabin, which you see behind me. And it took the Cahoons about a week to build their cabin, maybe a little less. It took the Scouts about 4 or 5 years to build this cabin. It was strictly volunteer work on the weekends. But they did not use any power tools, all built by hand using the traditional methods of construction. Let's go inside. We're inside now the Cahoon Memorial log cabin, built in 1976 by John Brandt. Life was tough for these pioneers. They had to, there was no grocery stores, there was no internet, there was no electricity, there was no hot water, there was no anything. They're essentially out in the wilderness. We are about 10 to 12 miles west of downtown Cleveland. The quickest way to get downtown would have been by boat. And at the time the Cahoons were here, downtown Cleveland was maybe 60 people. So it wasn't very big yet. So they were pretty much on their own. They could trade with Indians and some of the folks who went along the lake in boats. So they had to make do with what they had. They would grow vegetables, they would raise animals, grapes, different fruits and vegetables. They would bring fish in from the lake, but there were no refrigerators, no real good ways of canning and preserving what they've harvested. Times were tough. Very few doctors, very little prenatal care. You'd have 8 children and maybe 4 or 5 of them would make it to adulthood. They always said if your child grows past 2, he'll make it. You know, scarlet fever would come through and kill 2 or 3 of your children within 2 weeks. So this barn, or this structure, shows some of the tools and implements they used. They didn't have glass for the window. They would take rabbit skin and skin the rabbit. You could skin a rabbit very thin and tack that rabbit skin over the window to keep the bugs out and let some form of light in. But as you can imagine, in the dead of winter, it's pretty cold in here, and they're huddled around this fireplace. They got to keep their firewood dry, although it's outside, because wet firewood won't really burn very well. But it shows some of the tools that they would use to hang herbs and create clothing, and it was a tough existence, but they persevered. Behind me is the smokehouse. This smokehouse was moved to this property. It's not original to the Cahoon family, but they probably had one very similar to this. This used to be out on Bradley Road and was moved here. But this is typical of a smokehouse. You would take your beef, pork, venison, hang it in here, build a low smoldering fire, which would put kind of a smoky crust on your meat and help preserve it. This building was also the city's first jail, and it would have been pretty dismal to have been locked up in that thing, I'll guarantee you. Behind me is the community house. This was originally the Cahoon family barn, built in the 1880s. It was converted in the 1930s into a community house by the WPA and served the city as the community house for many, many years. It's now being used by the city's recreation department to house their offices. The cupola on top is a recreation of the original cupola. The original cupola was destroyed over time. It was replaced by a functional cupola that wasn't historically accurate. And so for the bicentennial of the city of Bay Village in 2010, the Bay Village Historical Society helped raise the funds necessary to replace the replacement cupola with a cupola of the original size and shape as the Cahoons would have had it, and that's what you see on top.